Hey class, in this video we're going to be going over level design 2. Mainly what we're going to be talking about is how to make a level that's different from your first level. We want each one of our levels to be unique in different ways. And so we'll be using some of the same concepts that we covered in the original level design video. So you may want to go back to the original level design video and take a look at the principles and the techniques that we talked about. But in this lab, we'll mostly be talking about doing things like changing the colors, changing different mechanics, and adding to the difficulty of the level as well to make it more engaging for the player. So I'll be going over creating a new level. I'll be going over a couple things that you might want to use while you're creating the level, specifically merging elements from one scene to another. And then we will do some documentation and post it on the Open Lab. So let's get started. So to get started, we can open a game or a project that we're working on, or use the designer default. If you already made a level in the level design lab, which you should have done before this one, you could just make a copy of that and rename it. That might be an easy way to go. Or if you want to start from scratch, just make a completely new level. So one process that I will show that makes it a little bit easier to making a new level is merging components from a scene. So I'll go over how to do that. We can also look at some of the old principles from the previous level design lab if we want to keep those in mind. Things like guidance, using obstacles and rewards, the perfect player principle, and pacing, and techniques like signposting, foreshadowing, gating, risk versus reward, safe zone, branching, bottlenecking, layering. All of these things we'll be thinking about when we create our second level. So I'm going to go open my MMP 270 folder and go to designer and go to my designer default. So then I'll open project.godot. And so if I go to scenes and go to level 1, you can see the level that I created. And it mostly goes horizontal, and it uses a few of the different level principles. I'm going to move my player. I had him over here to do some testing. So let's move him back to the beginning of the scene. So this is where he's going to start out. So there's a couple ways I could do this. I could duplicate the whole scene and move stuff around, or I can start a new scene. So one thing that I want to demonstrate is that if I do start a new scene, it's pretty easy to bring over components from the previous scene. So I have a level 2 that I created in a previous lab. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this and start a new scene. So I'll click remove, and then I'll go to scenes and click new scene, and I'll call this level 2. And so I have this big empty page. The first thing I want to do is create a new node 2D and then type in level 2. And so one thing that's nice about starting from scratch is I might be able to kind of have new ideas and do something completely different than what I had in the previous level. But there's certain things that we are going to want to keep the same. For example, we're going to want a scene manager, we're going to want our metrics, and we're definitely going to want our player. So there's an easy way to get that. I can right click on level 2 and go to merge from scene, and then go to scenes and go to level 1 and click open. And this is going to give me a list of everything that was in that scene. And so now I can just bring in anything that I don't want to recreate. So for example, the scene manager, definitely don't want to recreate this because it's going to be the same. I may need to fix some of these things, but this is going to be pretty much the same stuff. Then I can go again and choose the UI. So I want all the stuff in the UI that I had in the previous level. So I'm going to bring that stuff in. I'm also going to want the player. So I'll go and grab the player. Player is all the way down here, so I'll click OK. And then from there, you could decide, okay, do I want to use the same tile set? Do I want to create a completely new tile set with new tiles? There's a lot of choices that you could make here. So I do want to add in my platforms, but I'm going to make a couple of changes to them. So I'm going to go to merge from scene, go to level 1, and choose my platforms and click OK. So I don't need a blocker. I'm just going to delete that one. And then I don't want to start with all this stuff. So one thing I could erase, I could go through and right click and just drag over everything, but that would kind of take me a while. Another thing that I can do is just reset my tile set. And this will work as long as I have my tile set saved. So I have these two tile sets, the auto and the default. And if you have them saved, then you can just reload them. If you haven't saved your tile sets, then you're going to have to recreate them from scratch. You probably don't want to do that. So maybe just delete them. But if you do have them saved, you can reset them pretty easily. So if I reset and then go to load and go to tile sets and go to default. Now I have the tiles back, but I don't have the actual tiles in the scene. So I can do the same thing with my auto tiles. I'm going to reset and go to load and go to auto. And so that's a quick way to keep my tiles, but not have to reuse them. So there's other stuff that I may want to put in, but I'm just going to start with my platform. So I'm going to make a couple changes in this scene. One thing is I'm going to make my platforms a different color, and I'm also going to make the scene more horizontal. So I'm going to make a couple changes to make that easier. So one thing I might do for the player is change the gravity or the jump force. So maybe I'll make the jump force like 600. And then with my tiles, let's start with the basic tiles. I'm just going to create a platform for the player to land on here. And then let's put a couple edges on here. And then we can put some sides, and I'm just gonna make these go down pretty far. And then let's fill that in with my default here. And then let's choose a color for this. So I'm going to go to basic tiles, and I can set the color of all of them by using this modulate color under the visibility. And so maybe I can make them kind of blue or purple, and this will give us kind of a different sense of this level. Let's save that hex code, and I'll apply it to my auto tiles as well. So we haven't added any auto tiles, but now when we go in, we'll use that. For this one, I'm actually going to change sort of the dimensionality of my scene. So with my auto tiles, instead of going right and left, what I'll do is I'll just put a little platform right here. And so let's just test that real quick. Let's make sure the player can actually get up to that platform with our jumping. So the platform is a little bit higher than what we would have had in level 1, but with our increased jump height, we can get up there. And so this scene is going to feel a little bit different with this different jump height. And so we can create more of a vertical scene that's different from our first scene. So our scenes will stand out. So that's a pretty simple way of making our scenes feel a little bit different. So let's keep drawing some tiles. I'm not going to spend a ton of time really making sure this scene is perfect, but we'll just give the player some more options for how to travel through here. So we'll just kind of create some tiles going around, and maybe we'll go out to the side a little bit and do some different stuff. So let's play around with that a little bit. Just give the player a few different ways to go. And now we see that we're hitting the limit of where our camera will go. So let's go to our camera, let's go to the limit, and our top, let's just refresh that. So there's no limit on the top of the camera. So now we can jump up, and so we can start to see the scene. And so one of the interesting things I'm seeing as I sort of play this is we can really jump pretty far, and we can start to reveal more of the scene as we jump. So maybe we can kind of reveal more options as the player goes up. So I'm just going to make a few more layers of tiles. And so these are all just kind of like branching options. We can see kind of like different stuff and reveal different things as we go up. And then maybe I'll just make a few little small tiles to make it harder at the top here. And maybe I'll put the end of my level up here. And I can put my portal to end the level up there. So that looks like a pretty good level. Let's see if we can actually get all the way through. Again, I'm just doing this pretty quickly. You can spend a lot more time kind of practicing different levels and trying them out. So can I get up here? Okay. And I'm hitting my head a lot. That's not the most interesting experience. So I might want to adjust the tiles so I can jump up and then jump over. I don't want to keep hitting my head. So when we play through, we kind of learn things like that. So I don't want to keep hitting my head here and here. So let's move our tiles up a little bit more. Maybe I'll put another option over here. And probably can't make that jump. Okay, so I can make it up. Let's see if I can get over here. Yeah, so I can go either way. So not perfect. I should definitely spend more time kind of tweaking the spacing and the general flow of those tiles, but that gives me enough to kind of work with. So let's start adding some other parts. So we're going to be layering in some of our rewards and obstacles. And we can put rewards and obstacles on different tiles to kind of motivate the player to either avoid or go towards different tiles. I'm not gonna merge these because I'm just gonna start adding them. So I'm gonna add a new child. So I'm gonna add another node 2D and I'll call this apples. I'll put my apples in here and then we'll make a couple more of these. So I'll put snakes here and vines here. And the last one I'll do is lives. And so I'll put all of these, I'll put the player below all of these guys. And so for the apples, I'm just gonna instance a child scene and find my item. And now let's lock up the player so I don't move the player. And we'll grab the item, there we go. So let's put the item up here just to give the player a little bit more motivation to get up here. So remember, once we've added the apple, we need to connect the item to the scene manager, and we're gonna need to do this with our apples and our lives. If we don't do this, we're gonna have to do it with each individual one. So before we start duplicating, make sure to select the apple or the item, go over to item collected in the node tree and double click item collected, choose the scene manager, and make sure to change this to just on item collected because we have one method for both our items and our lives, and click connect. And if you don't see it connect to this function, if it creates a brand new function that just says pass, that means that it's not set up correctly. So if that happens and you're not sure why, let me know, we can fix it, but just make sure that the green signal connects to the on item collect. So now when we duplicate our apples, each new one will still have that item collected signal set up. So we don't have to worry about connecting them to our scene manager. If you duplicated the scene, your items should already be connected. But if you created a new scene, you have to remember to do that. So let's put a few more apples in some harder to reach areas. So maybe over here as a little reward for getting up that far. And then I'll keep just duplicating it. So I'm just hitting Command D. So let's add a couple up here. And then maybe we'll add one over here and one over here. Okay, so that's enough apples. You could add more. My level isn't super long. You could probably make a longer level, but I'm gonna collapse this and go to lives next. So I'll move this up here, go to lives. I'm gonna instance a life here. And same deal here. Let's put our life, we may not really need a lot of lives. Let's just put this one kind of in that middle section. Oops. So let me make sure I'm getting the life and move that up. And I'll just put it about halfway through the level so that if we lost a life, we have a chance to get it back. But we don't need a whole lot of these because it is a relatively short level. Again, you shouldn't have, lives everywhere because that will make the level too easy, but you can do some playthroughs and you can see what the correct balance of challenge and difficulty would be. So remember, with our life, we also have to connect this to the scene manager. So go over to the node, double click item collected, change this to on item collected and click connect. Same thing here, we should see this code here and that will set everything up and update our metrics and do everything that we need it to do. So we're only actually gonna have one life, I think. So I'll just leave that there. So then we can go to our snakes. Actually, let's add our vines first. So let's add some vines. And we'll put a few on some of our bigger platforms. So I'll go to vines and instance a child scene. And this is my simple obstacle. So I'll go to obstacle simple. And then let's move this over here. So we'll put one here. Remember that there's frame numbers, so I can change the frame numbers. And we don't need to connect this one to the scene manager because it just hits the player and then the player will emit a signal. So we don't need to worry about that. That reminds me though that we do need to connect our player hit signal to the scene manager. So we can remove, I think it's just on player hit. Almost forgot to do that. Okay, so we also have the on player hit signal. So it's good to remember that we need to connect that as well. So now let's duplicate some vines. Maybe I'll put one over here and change the frame number. And then duplicate it again. Let's put one here, change the frame number. Maybe I'll put one right in between these apples to make that kind of challenging. And maybe I'll put some over here. And I'm just kind of choosing random frame numbers. I only have 3 different sprites for this, so there isn't that much variety, but at least it'll make some difference. And let's put another one in between these apples. and I'll put one in between these hearts. So I'm kind of actually repeating this pattern now. So it's nice to repeat patterns. These guys are too small for vines. It's going to be too challenging, but let's put one up here and another one up here, and we'll put the portal in the middle. So this will be kind of the end of our level. So let's put a portal here. So in the previous lab, we did checkpoints and portals. So we can go to our level 2 and click merge from scene. And we already have this in level 1 and it's already set up. So I might as well just grab it and then I can just reset the position of the portal. So there's our portal. It's going to be somewhere like way over there, but we can just reset it to something. Just going to kind of look at my ruler here. So let's go to our portal and go to my transform. And so the X value is something around 200. And then the Y value is like negative 1800. So I'm actually just looking, the numbers are very small, but I'm looking up in the ruler here and over here. And that's pretty close. So I'll put my portal right here. And let's actually use the color modulation again. So I'm gonna go to my platforms and grab the hex value for this color. And now I'll go to my portal, go to visibility, modulate, and just paste that in. And cool, now we have a different color for our portal as well. So this is actually my portal next level, but what I want here is a portal end game. So let's just remember the transform position, and I'll go to portals and go to instance and go to portal, and let's use the portal end game. And so then we can just copy, so 192, 1824. So this one is 192 and negative 1824. Okay, now that's the same, and I think I still have the color saved here, so let's paste that in there. Okay, that looks good. So now I can just delete. So I had the portal next level, but what I want is the portal end. And I need to connect that to my scene manager. So I'm going to connect that. And there we go. We're going to declare win game, which is going to display our win game UI. So now we have the end of the level when we get up here. Let's also add a checkpoint. So there's a natural place to add a checkpoint, maybe right here. And so I can do the same thing here. I'll go to level 2 and go to merge from scene. Go to level 1, I'm gonna collapse all this stuff and find my checkpoints. Click OK. And I only need one checkpoint, so I'm gonna delete the second checkpoint. And then I'm gonna hit F to find this checkpoint. It's all the way over here. I'm just gonna be lazy and drag it. I don't wanna remember the numbers, so let's move our checkpoint up here. So I'm just kind of throwing these things around. We could change the color for the checkpoint to match the scene as well. So let's move this down here, and I'm gonna see what happens if I just put in the same thing that I've been putting into everything. I think I still have that available. And okay, that looks kind of cool. So we're just kind of changing this to a purple one. That looks fine. I'm gonna leave that as is. Okay, so there's one last component to the scene, which is the snakes, the main obstacle. And so I'm gonna put some snakes on the larger platform. So I'm gonna go to snakes, go to instance, child scene, and this is my obstacle moving. And let's move our obstacle up here. And then remember, we have a lot of options with the snakes, like the direction. Maybe we can start this direction this way. We can change the speed. So maybe I'll increase the speed to like 75 to make this a little more challenging. And I definitely want to stay on the platform with these guys. So I'll click on so that it activates on player. So I have all those options. I don't think I need any signals here, so I'll leave this. And so if the player enters the snake, the player will emit that it's hit to the scene manager. So let's just add in some snakes. So let's put one here, put one there. I'm just duplicating these again. And so I'm actually just gonna add one to any platform that doesn't have anything else on it, just to kind of fill some stuff in. And again, I'm just kind of filling this in. You might have other ideas for how you want to set up your level design, and I encourage you to try them out. I think it would be kind of mean to put some snakes up here, but actually, let's put a couple snakes up here, but let's turn them to not stay on platform and not activate on player. So they're just going to fall from the sky. I think that might be too hard, but let's see what happens. Let's see if they even get near us. So let's do that. And you could also do something where if the snake falls off a platform and then hits another platform, then it changes so that it stays on that platform. Anyway, so now I have a whole bunch of stuff. I think I have all of the different elements that we've created in all of the various labs. So let's try a playthrough and see how it goes. Oh, and I got an error because I forgot to set up my checkpoint correctly. So remember, the checkpoints needs to have a scene name that's different from the other scenes. So this is going to be level 2. And then it also has a list of all the objects in the scene. So I'm actually going to ignore this for now. I'm just going to leave the objects because it's a little tedious to go in and fill all the objects. But remember that the checkpoint can do that. So remember, you have to give it a new level name. And you also have to add in your objects if you want it to track all the objects in the scene. So that would be a good thing to do. It's a bit tedious, so I'm not going to do it in this video. So let's try that again. Okay. So there's my snake. Let's see, it gets activated. Okay, so I'm going to get that. And then we have these 2 apples. And so at this point, I kind of know that this snake is going to get activated. So I can activate them and then move. And okay, so those 2 vines over there, there's no real reason for me to want to go over there because there's no apples. So I might want to add, so I should definitely add some apples anytime there is a obstacle, although it might be easier to go that way than to get on this. This is pretty challenging. So now we can get up here. Okay, then there's also no reason to go down here to get the snake. So that's another thing that we might want to change. And it's actually really hard to get on these platforms where the vines are so close. So let's try putting them in the middle and test this out. So I'm not going to change everything in here, but just pointing out a couple things. Let's put an apple in here, or actually let's make that a little bit more enticing. So let's put an extra life in here. So if we've already lost a life, that will make us want to go over there. And so I think this is a bit more balanced. Let's try this again. So you are going to have to do a lot of playthroughs to get your level to work right. I'm going to activate this snake and then kind of sneak past him. Okay, so now I see there's a life over there and there's some apples over here. And if I've lost a life at this point, I might want to go grab that one. So it is really hard to kill these snakes. I might want to make the hitbox bigger. Okay, so I should test. I think these guys are too close together. Although that's going to make it, there we go. That might be easier. Okay. So I've lost a life already. Oh, that's, so all the snakes kind of fell off over there. So I barely even noticed that. But that's okay. Maybe I'll put them to activate on player, and so it'll be really scary, but then they'll just fall off. That would be kind of funny. Okay, now I can get up here and get up here. Let's see if I can get to the checkpoint. Okay, I haven't actually lost a life, so I'm not going to bother getting that one. This one's kind of weird because I have to actually go up here, but then I get the checkpoint. So now I'm feeling pretty good. Try to get the life. Oh, I got it. Okay, so I can actually get in there. So this level is actually turning out to be quite challenging. Okay, so now I've got the apple, I've got this. Can I get to the portal? I did. Nice. Okay, so that was actually pretty fun. So let's try one more thing, and then I think that's going to be good enough. So I'm going to go to the snake, and I'm going to say activate on player for each one of these guys. So that'll be kind of like a little tricky part at the end. Okay, and let's try this again. Actually, I want to, okay, and let's move my player up to the checkpoint because I don't really want to do this whole level again. So I'm going to go to the player and unlock them, and let's move them up here to the checkpoint and test. Okay, so now I can see the snake and it's not going anywhere, but then if I get close, then it moves. So that's kind of funny. I don't know if it's the best mechanic in the world, but it is kind of interesting. And I can keep playing after I win, which is something that I need to fix, but I don't need to do it in this demo right now. I also have all the snakes facing in the same direction, so I should flip some of the directions for those, or maybe I could use a code to randomize it. Anyway, that's a pretty decent level. Let's do a little bit of documentation so we can post this on the Open Lab. So I'm just gonna show, let's set my player back to the original position. So I'm just gonna do that by going 0, 0. And then let's play the scene and take some screenshots. So this is my new level. I'm gonna take a screenshot there. And then we can show that the snakes are activated when the player arrives. So let's take a screenshot there. And then we can show getting this heart. So we don't have to get everything in the level. You could do a video, that might be easier in this instance, but we just wanna get a good sense of the progress of the level from the video. So let's show this guy. And then we have to go up here. And then we have to get the snake to jump off. And then now we can go to our checkpoint. We might want to put the checkpoints in front of the player actually. Can I actually get up here? I don't know if I can. I guess I have to jump from here. Yeah, I can make it up there. So then I have to scare the snake, get up there, take another screenshot, and then get to the end. Okay, so we've got some documentation. Now we can leave Godot and go post it on the Open Lab. All right, so let's post our documentation on the Open Lab. So we can go to the Open Lab and create a new post. And let's add the category. This is level design 2. And we can say my second level. And here we can describe a little bit about what you changed in the level, what kind of mechanics you used. And then the nice thing about this one is we have a whole bunch of screenshots to kind of tell the story of the level. You could also record a video of playing through the level if you wanted to post that. So I'm going to say for my second level, I increased the jump power and made the level go vertically instead of horizontally. So that's the main thing that I changed. You can also see some of the visual changes in the screenshots. So you can include that, or you can just let the images speak for themselves. So I'll try to get these in order. I think this is the beginning of the level. So I'm just going to drag these in just so we can get a good example of the flow of the level. So here's where we start. And here we can see we're kind of surrounded by different snakes. And here we've jumped up, and then we can see a couple of the reward options. And so we went for the life reward. And then we went over there, and then we went up to the next level. And I think that's actually the checkpoint. It's kind of hard to see. So the checkpoint was kind of behind the player at that point. I might want to move the checkpoints in front of the player. And then we're getting towards the end of the level. And then we see that we won the game when we reached the end of the level. So that's kind of nice, just telling that story with screenshots. Let's take a look at a preview. And this looks pretty good. We can see the progress through the level. And there we go. So that looks good. I'm going to close this and go ahead and publish.